When I got started playing jazz guitar, I came from the rock world, specifically the loud rock world, where the guitar player was the big feature, or close to it. And I didn't take a back seat to anyone else in the band. That's how, it wasn't me with a big ego, that's just how rock and roll is played, that kind of rock and roll. And so when I got into jazz, I really didn't like the idea so much of being relegated to more of a supporting role in the background. And one of my big competitors was anyone who played piano. So I kind of got not in a real way, I mean, didn't have any real feelings behind it, but it was just sort of a creative persona that I had a chip on my shoulder versus piano players. There were several reasons for this. First of all, when you're putting together a small group, you have to have someone to play chords. Usually you pick someone to play chords, and often you would hear, well, let's get a piano player. Not as often would you say, let's get a guitar player. Or if you did hear that, you'd say, well, if we're going to have guitar, we're going to need a piano too, because the guitar player won't be enough chord support for the band. And it was a kind of a belief that people had that the guitar player wasn't able to do that kind of support. And I think a lot of guitar players can't do that kind of support like a piano player can. So I really had a problem with this. So I believe you could. And the other thing that I resented was that to teach you music theory in classical and jazz, they required you to play a certain level of piano, every music student. And I said, my belief was, I play guitar, I can see the chords, I can see patterns, I can see the music theory just as well as a piano player on the guitar. I don't need to play piano, but I had to learn to play piano anyway. So, and I didn't really like playing piano, I wasn't very good at it, so that was kind of annoying. But there was a very real consideration too, because if you have a couple horn players and a drummer and you want to get a gig together and you need someone playing chords, you'd rather pay one guy, the piano player, than have to pay two guys. So guitar player might not get the call when a piano player would, because why split the money 5 ways when you could split it 4 ways? So I was on a quest to prove that the guitar player could support the band just as well as a piano player, and I always my attitude was to figure out how to do that. The third issue was, if you did end up in a situation you were playing as a guitar player playing with a piano player, it was very difficult, especially if you didn't know each other and you hadn't worked things out beforehand. First of all, you're going to play a lot less, and then you had to figure out who's playing chords when, and there's a lot of opportunities to step on each other's toes, and I got yelled at once. So I want to discuss in this little tutorial how you can be a big, expansive, very supportive guitar player in a jazz combo and not make people feel like they miss having the piano player. So as a little demonstration, this is one guy I really like who always used really big voicings, was Ahmad Jamal, and so here's a little exercise, you can call it. Now, to break out of this guitar player box, we're going to have to break a few rules. Oh! You can use some really big chords here. You can have a nice open A here. You can pedal on the A. And this is actually an E minor 11 over A. So one of the rules is, they always told me, was don't use open strings. And that's absolute baloney. Open strings can really penetrate and bring out a really big texture. So if I'm doing something like this, right, you see this often, 2-5-1 in D. Where are you going to find an open string? Well, on the A chord, you can do one. I like this one. You go. Get a nice rub there with the second, too. Or ninth, whatever you want to call it. Listen to the difference. And it's just bigger. There's without. There's with. Incorporate the thing I did before. If there's some notes you want to get in that are on extensions, like some 6 voicing chords, like say you want to get in a nice tonic 9th rub, and you don't want to leave out the 3rd of the chord too. So there's nothing wrong with going switching up a little. It'll add something. And sometimes when I'm sitting on a chord, I'll just mix up the voicings a little bit. Like here, if you have an A major 7, I might go. So I get all the notes in, not all at the same time maybe, but it does the job, you know, instead of just this. So like, another big myth that I believed for a while is that because you got all these fingers and all these keys on the piano that your voicings are going to be bigger. And that's not as true as I thought it was. And in fact, most of the time it's not. Most of the time, if you use the guitar right, if you're comping like a regular guitar player and you're doing 4 and 3 note voicings, yeah. That's not very big. That's only 3 and 4 notes, whereas the piano player can do 6. He can't do 10 though. You're not totally outmatched. I mean, he's got theoretically 10 fingers he can do, but realistically, he's never going to be able to do a chord with 10 voicings. They're usually around 5 or 6, and if he's soloing, it's just 3, or maybe 4. If you got some clusters in there, you could maybe get over 6, but not too much. So if you know your inversions and you move around the neck pretty well, you can do 6-note voicings instead of 3 and 4 note voicings, right? So a regular guitarist might go, right? You can still go. You might come up with some pretty interesting inversions to do that, but they're there. It takes a little bit more effort. Another thing to do is that, even though you want to keep the rhythm going, to really bring out all those notes, sometimes do a strum. You're going. Just make sure you keep in rhythm when you do it. Or a nice fancy Spanish guitar kind of thing like that. That'll add some volume to your playing. Volume meaning size. You get the idea. I mean, it's overdoing it, but you can see how big the chords are. One thing you got to be very careful of is when you play the chord, make sure you get all the notes and you can hear them all. It's very hard, but like you got a big 6 voiced chord here. Make sure you get every single voice. And then this, let that A ring the whole time. You want it to be really clear. No. And when it's punchy, you want it to be punchy, but still clear. Get all the notes. You don't want to cheat yourself. You got 6 strings here. You don't have 88 keys.